Come on, kids, and turn on the TV. Gonna watch some shot-out video movies. Let's say Tony and Maddie. With SOVs who love SOVs. With SOVs who love SOVs.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SOBs who love SOV. I am Becca, and we are here for a very special episode of our show. We have the legendary, the awesome, the director, Todd Sheets here.
Hey, glad to be here, guys.
And of course, I am still here with my co-host, Tony Masiello.
Thistle.
Slade Shepard.
Hello.
And Maddie Deering.
Hey.
And we are here specifically to talk about Todd's masterpiece, his magnum opus, his favorite film in his catalog, Goblin.
The worst. What are you trying to do?
Just had to rib you a little bit. So Todd has been on our flagship show in the Micah Madness twice. And I believe the first time he was on it, Slade actually uttered the word goblin, and I think Todd just about had like an aneurysm. And so we were talking on our last show. We've all kind of done our favorite ones. I did like Video Violence 1 and 2. Maddie did Killer Nerd. Slade did Redneck Zombies. And so we asked Tony, what's your favorite? And he said, probably Goblin. And we're like, oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
So,
poor Tony, I swear.
Okay. So, we're going to start with Todd, because I was being sarcastic if nobody caught that. You know, if the listeners didn't catch that, I don't think he's incredibly proud of this film. And I'm kind of curious to start out why.
Well, you've seen it, first of all, so that should be a big red flag as to why. It's a steaming pile of garbage, but other than that, I think because, listen, there's some things I loved about the creation of those older movies, those early years. Working with a lot of those people was very great. I really liked a lot of those people. I really did. They were fantastic, and they were doing the best they could, and I was doing the best I could. The problem is we just didn't know what we were doing. And I went through a lot of hardships because when those movies came out, a lot of people just lost their minds. And I had a guy, honest to God, I know I told you on your show, the other show, that actually said, if you pick up a camera again, I'm going to kill your mother. And it was like that kind of insanity, that kind of response. It was just a bunch of kids trying to do what we could and pay homage to our influences or whatever. But I know it was awful. I know. And, but that doesn't mean that people should have been so nasty and almost violent towards us. But we caught a lot of really dark, nasty comments, and it was very discouraging for kids. I mean, instead of saying, hey, you guys tried, like the people who put them out said, hey, we see that you're doing the best you can. You're working it, they saw something in us that we didn't see in ourselves. But the problem was that, we just really, it just felt like we were under attack, under siege on a lot of those. And because we didn't have any money and we didn't know a lot of what we were doing, we were just trying to learn as we went along. And it wasn't like there's a lot of film schools around to do it. There was a couple, but all they did was sit around and complain about other people's movies. I mean, they didn't really teach us anything. So when
you say you were getting flack, I mean, this is obviously pre-social media. This is 93. Were you getting it from like magazines, from like write-in? I mean, like
stuff like that.
Complaining.
Yeah, I mean, you read those early alternative cinemas, and I mean, they gave you a lot of shit in those, which I always found that unfortunate, because there's guys like me who actually really enjoy that early work of yours.
Yep. Well, I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. The thing is, alternative cinema really freaked me out because I was like, hold on a minute. That's our distributor putting those out.
Right.
And
I wanted to ask you about that, yeah.
and it was hard at the time because, listen, I like JR. We're friends. And to read that kind of nastiness coming at me from someone who I really thought a lot of, it was hard to swallow that. And JR and I had a bit of a rub, at the time about that. And now we laugh about it and we get along great. But back then it was like one of those things where JR, he was getting very discouraged because the market was up and down and up and down, and it was difficult. And he was seeing a lot of startup guys doing similar things to what I was doing, and it was frustrating because not very many of them had a lot of quality, just a lot of quantity. People would make 15 of those things a year, and they were awful. But I saw his point later, but at the time it was very hurtful. And he said, well, look, what I'm doing here is I'm building, people are going to want to buy these movies just because they read these articles about them being the worst movies ever. And that is an appeal. So they're going to want to buy them, and it's marketing. And I was like, yeah, but man, sometimes, he would come after us under fake names and stuff himself. The JR himself would write those articles, and it was hard just because I did consider him a mentor and a friend. And after having worked with Dave Dakota, who did nothing like that, he was the opposite. He was very supportive, and he said, hey, look, here's where you're having problems, but these parts are pretty neat, and I see some talent here. The makeup effects, you're trying really hard, and the cool lighting, and you're trying, and I see that you're trying, but you're just so light years away from where I needed to be. But he was very supportive, and JR put out that magazine, and it was just like a constant barrage of hate. And it was hard. And not just that. I mean, there's other people too out there that were, very nasty. And I would get mail back in those days, actual mail.
Yeah.
And you'd read it. And some people loved them, but a lot of people were just like so nasty. You'd think I would have went out and like shot their grandma or ran over their, the mailman or something. I don't know. It was just, we were just kids. We didn't do anything to hurt anyone. And Goblin was kind of coming it was coming to a head during that time. And there was a lot of things about Goblin that kind of went sideways, and having no money at all, we couldn't really fix it. And when I watch it, I'm just, so unhappy with certain aspects of it. And even during filming of it, I remember there were some times that I just was so burnt out on not having the funds and not really being frustrated with myself because I didn't know. I know what I wanted, but I didn't know how to get it on any kind of video because I just didn't have the ability at the time yet. And so I was so frustrated because I was like, we're trying so hard, but nothing looks like it's supposed to. This is supposed to look like Suspiria, you fools, but it looked like, a Fisher-Price garbage cam. And I was just like, look, man, I don't know what to do. And I was trying to learn, but it was so frustrating during those years. And so my love of those movies, when I say I disown them, I feel bad in a way because I don't want the people who were involved in making them with me to feel like I'm disowning them. I'm not. I'm just disowning that whole period of pain and frustration and, anger and really just a lot of bad juju that was going around. And Goblin was kind of getting to that point where I was like, I was so frustrated because I was ready to go to the next level, but I didn't know how. And I was trying to learn, and people were, instead of having the nurturing of Dave Dakota, who had moved on and gotten rid of cinema home video, and he was doing other things, I didn't have that anymore. And I just had people like slinging garbage at me and throwing shit in my face instead of someone I needed to like maybe take me under the wing and say, look, this is what we need to talk about, Todd, director's lines, and we need to talk about, white balancing. We need to talk about just little technical things that I was trying to learn on my own. And even then, there weren't as many books, really. And luckily, I stumbled onto film directing shot by shot around I can't remember when. It's like around the time of Zombie Bloodbath 2, I think. Maybe right after part 1, I stumbled on that book, and I started really learning. That book was a godsend. It's like a Bible, really, for directors. And I didn't even really want to be a director just because no one else could. I was a makeup effects dude when I first started. I was a kid. I was like, 10 years old making Frankenstein movies. But the only reason is because I had the camera, which was my dad's, and I had the lights, and I kind of was the one that was putting it all together, and my friends were helping. But that's how I became the director. I mean, on those early movies, like the ones that, you know, they put out the Sheets of Gore stuff, those short films that we did. I think I see more promise in those short films that they put out. SRS Cinema put those out, and I think the reason I allowed those to go out is because I recently I rewatched some and I was like, man, there's so much more promise in these than any of the feature length stuff I did in those early days. Each one has a horror story behind it, of course, starting with Zombie Rampage, and that was my first feature, and then going from there, they're just escalating in hell. But that, you know, Sheets of Gore kind of shows where we were at before those, and those had a lot more promise, and I felt like those short films were better in a lot of ways than the features that we made afterwards. And I was just a kid, but I did those because I didn't know I was going to be a director. We just kind of all did it together, and then I kind of became the director of those. So it was weird. It was weird.
Given that, what you just said, it kind of almost seems like having distribution was a blessing and a curse. Like you weren't quite ready for it. Is that safe to say?
I don't think anyone, when they first start out, is quite ready for it. I understand everyone's excited to get it and ready to go. But that's one of the downfalls I see even today, you know, especially with like the cell phones and these people trying to make movies on iPhones and things. The technology's there, and it's kind of a cheat because it's no fair. Back in those days, there was no way to edit these damn movies, man. I literally sat with two VCRs and a pause button.
You're preaching to the choir. It's what we say every damn time we review any of these. We're like, anytime there's like a crackle in the audio or like, wow, we would have shaved like that half second off. It's like, okay, you got to remember they were like renting like some cable studio like for 2 hours on a Sunday, you know?
I didn't even have that. I worked for a cable company later around Zombie Bloodbath time, and that helped, yes. But those early days, like Goblin, I literally found a VHS VCR with a flying erase head, which was the biggest thing ever. I was like, oh my God, I can edit with that without those rainbow things everywhere. Let's do that. And I literally was using the camcorder for the other VCR, and it had a dub feature. And so I was able to assemble an edit with a pause button and a play button, and that was it. And you'd have to time it. And I didn't even have the cool little edit controller. I had none of that. I had a pause button. And then I went back after it was all done, and I did a dub to put music in. I had to do the sound effects while we were doing the video edit on the fly. Like I'd have to have either a microphone there or a little sound gizmo thing hooked up to a mixer, and I would literally have to do sound effects. Sometimes a Sega Genesis for our sound effects machine.
Wow.
Because we literally had no way to put sound effects even in because we only had one dubbing track.
I can't imagine how difficult that was for you. I can't even fathom that, how long it took you to probably compile all that.
I will tell you, it was it was about a living nightmare. It was like, what am I even doing here? It was like insanity, but I had this passion for it, and I loved doing it, and I just really loved the whole genre. And in those days, it was like, man, we just wanted to do it. We just, you know, that was our dream. And like even my early Super 8, like Frankenstein stuff, I was editing that on a little, I kind of had this little splicer, and then the projector we had a way to dub on one of the tracks of the Super 8, so I could go in and put music in and stuff and sound effects, and we would sit there, and I'd put the music in off a cassette recorder, and we would sit there and like slap our hands and stuff trying to match the smacks on people's faces. You had one go around though, because after you put stuff on that track is done. You aren't using it again. It's not like now where you can go back and redo it, or even on video we could redo it. But back then on film, nope, you're done. So if the punch across the face was too late or too early, it stayed that way, and there was nothing you could do. Now, what kills me now is iPhones have this built-in cinema stuff, so you don't even have to know how to white balance. You don't know how to color correct. You don't have to do anything. You hit a setting, and suddenly your movie looks like Tim Burton. It's not fair. It's just not fair.
No, it isn't fair. And what's also not fair is this is 93, so it's we're kind of coming out of the SOV sort of genre. But what we've always said is like, when I went to a video store in 1988, I just picked what had a cool cover.
Yeah, me too.
I had the
Yeah.
most blood and guts or whatever. I mean, I didn't know if I was picking up a $10 million movie or a $10 movie. Like, I had no idea. I just watched it and I was cool with it. And I think by 93, don't you think maybe there was more like CGI starting to come out, some more like higher low budget?
We didn't do Goblin in 93. Everyone thinks we did because for some reason these years you can't get people to put them down right. Here's the way it went. We did 88. We started on Zombie Rampage. It was a living nightmare that almost made me quit. And then like 89, we finished it. 1990, we were shooting, and it was not even really 1990 yet. In December of 89, we started doing Nightmare Asylum. And in short succession, we did a handful of movies like bam, bam, bam. Goblin was technically 1991 era, 1990, 1991. So it wasn't even, believe it or not, by 93, things had taken a huge leap. Huge leap. There wasn't really CGI, so to speak, yet. That was more like 95, 96 that we were able to do what you call CGI. I mean, there was like a morphing program in 94, maybe. I don't remember, like the end of 94, that winter, but going into 95. But there wasn't a lot of CGI. And for us, we were like, okay, this whole, because I remember doing Violent New Breed, and that was 96. And we were able to play with morphing. And when we did Moonchild, 94, we were able to do morphing because that was like the big thing. And so we were able to go in and turn the guy into a werewolf that way, stuff like that. And even then it was crude as hell. Half of it I had to go in and frame by frame do myself in Photoshop because it would skip spots as it was morphing. It was a really crude, but at least we were able to do something. I mean, at the time they were talking about nonlinear editing on these computer systems, but you really had to have a lot of money because it was just not something that was readily available to everyone in 94. But with Moonchild, I edited the same old way. I was able to upgrade to an AG 1980 or something like that, or it was something near that, whatever the precursor to that was. It was a SVHS deck, and we had an SVHS camera, and we thought we were just the bee's knees, man. We had Hi-8 come out. Oh my goodness, look at that. We thought it was all, we'd hit the big time, but we were able to go in and do more, and we could do some color correcting and things because there were editing programs floating at that time. That was when Photoshop was brand new, pretty close. It was in those early 90s, and Premiere had just come out, and Avid had just come out, and they were starting to do that, but it just wasn't quite there yet. But it was enough that we could start kind of doing some neat things with it that we could incorporate into our linear editing. And I just didn't have the money or the hard drives to do all that because, that was a dream.
No one did. I mean, I'm sorry. 90. That's like my time frame. Like, I graduated high school in 94, so this is all cemented in my head so well of like how untouchable a computer was, and if you got to actually be anywhere near it, it was like a privilege. No one had one at home. It was just a completely different time.
Yeah, I mean, I literally had a guy that owned a company that did computers, and he was able to help us, and we were able to do a few things that way, which really, was a godsend for some of those movies. But poor Goblin didn't have jack. It didn't even have the cast, because the reason half that cast is in there is because other people wouldn't show up, and those were crew people that we just had to do. And the reason we had to do it is because we actually, it was terrible because we had to rent a house to shoot in. And it was a house that was getting ready to be renovated so we could get blood and stuff in it. And so when we started, we were like, okay, this is going to be great. But the problem was when people wouldn't show up and things, we would have to try to figure out what to do. And sometimes we would have already shot footage and they just didn't show up. So we had to like reshoot all that too. And we're like doing this in a house, and people were working during the week. We only had really weekends to shoot. And we were like, this sucks because we've only got the house for 4 weekends. What are we supposed to do? So it was, there's so many hardships, and we were just so young. Now, hell, I'd find ways to get that and whoop its butt and turn it into part of what's the story or whatever. But
I
back
mean,
then,
really, with Bobby Westbrook's ponytail, I think you could have made this movie. I mean,
I totally agree with you. Yes, I totally agree. And Bobby is great.
He posted something the other day, like, I Googled my name. I didn't know, like, I was so famous or blah, 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 or whatever. And I was like, did it say, like, blonde ponytail guy, Goblin? And he never responded to me.
Oh.
Oops.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And it's truth. I mean, it freaks me out, but it's the truth. There's so many people out there that truly love Goblin. And I run into these people at conventions, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do, because they come, man, Goblin, you got to sign it. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm just so sorry. I don't mean to.
You gotta get over that, man.
And then they go,
can I tell you, Todd, I'd love to just kind of tell you real quick my love and fascination with Goblin. I mean, I love all your movies. I'm a huge fan. I have been for years. But Goblin holds a special place for me because it's the first film by you I ever saw. I remember renting, I don't remember what the tape was. It was another Tempe videotape, and I saw the trailer at the end for Goblin. And I mean, at the time, I think I was like 12, 13 years old, and it was super gory and super violent. And I was like, I need to see this movie. And when I finally was able to track down a copy of Goblin, I mean, it blew my mind. It completely blew my mind, the amounts of gore and bloodshed and violence. And also that it was shot on video, that was really inspiring to me personally growing up, and wanting to be a effects artist / filmmaker myself. And, I get Goblin has, it obviously has its problems, but, I think fans like myself, we kind of see past a lot of those issues and see a lot of love and heart in the movie. I mean, I love the cast. I love seeing, another thing I love about the early films is seeing all the cast members come back, seeing people like Mike Hellman and, Tanya Monahan and all the, Veronica Orr, all these regulars you had in those early days. And, it's just a lot of fun and was very inspiring to me. I mean, immediately after seeing Goblin, I knew I wanted to put real guts in my movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could tell you stories about that too. That was a weird thing because we needed viscera, basically anything that looked like entrails. What that stuff actually was when you go to, like, here locally we have a place called Price Chopper, and we had like Bob's IGA, the grocery stores. When you go to these places, the meat department would cut the skin off or whatever, and they would have certain scraps that they couldn't feed humans, and they would throw them in a bucket, and then they would do whatever they were doing with them. Well, they would take pity on our poor souls and give us some of that stuff, and we'd have to try to refrigerate it or whatever. And being the guy I am, hell, I'm almost a vegetarian, and even back then I was very much like that. I'm not quite, because living in Kansas City, it's like almost impossible to be a full vegetarian, but I try really hard. And so that kind of always kind of got under my skin a little, that we had to use actual meat stuff. But the skins and stuff, I understood they were just going to be thrown away anyway. So we would get that kind of stuff. And I remember in Zombie Bloodbath, the scene where Jerry, the guys shove their hands up his buttocks and they're tearing his stuff out, and all of a sudden these guts start coming out his mouth. That was just a chicken skin that Jerry had saved from actual dinner. That's all that was. And he actually, it was a chicken skin, and he had it in the freezer, and it came out and he boiled it and everything, so it didn't have any bacteria and stuff. And then he just basically stuck it in his mouth. Yeah. It was like, one of those things where, but on Goblin, some of that, it was a mix. Like some of that stuff was literally like flour and water making a paste, and then we'd put food coloring in it, and then we'd throw in like scraps of anything we could find laying around. Sometimes it'd be a piece of rope that we would literally cover with tape to give it that smooth look. Sometimes it would be pieces of cotton we'd throw in there, big chunks of cotton balls, or we'd get these great big balls of cotton back then that you could pull little cotton balls off of, and we'd put that in there and make it stringy. And then we also had latex a little bit. We couldn't afford a lot because the latex was like $80 a gallon or whatever back then. And we were like, okay, so we'd get some latex to try to make the stretchy parts. And then we'd mix all that with those pieces from Price Chopper or wherever and try to make it look as gross as possible. And then we'd come up with the goofiest ideas like, okay, well, we're going to pull his brains out of his ear, only they look like entrails. What are we doing? Because everyone's like, well, let's just go get a brain. You can buy this cow brain. Or I said, no, I wouldn't do it because I was just so repulsed by the idea of actually using real animal parts that I wouldn't buy the cows. Well, they did it in this movie. Jerry, of course. Jerry was my partner in crime on writing a lot of these death scenes, and he was all about, well, Todd Herschel does. Yeah, but and I'd call Herschel. I'd be like, Herschel, I'm doing this movie. What would you suggest? And he'd be like, hey, because he's the one who told us to go ask for scraps in the first place. Because Herschel was one of my mentors, and we had written
more red food coloring.
Yeah, that's the thing. That food coloring looks great on the set, but whenever he would film it, because of the film stock he used, it would turn pink. And Herschel told me all that stuff when I was a kid, and really helped me learn how to do this stuff. And
cool.
And we wrote Blood Feast 2 together during that time. We were writing that, so it was one of those exciting periods of time when when things I felt like were just taking off. We're going to be something big, and I still say we're going to be something kind of.
But you
but
are.
I don't say,
Look, you have 4 adoring fans right now, and I will
you guys are fantastic.
I will say that I am going to throw this to Maddie Deering because she, I know, prepared some questions. She has not talked to you. I don't want to put her on the spot, but was there anything in particular you wanted to ask Todd, Maddie?
I don't, but Price Chopper I went to in my hometown. Where are you from, Todd?
Kansas City, Missouri.
Price Choppers from like upstate New York. I had Price Choppers there. I just think that's really cool.
That's
I've never
awesome.
even heard of it.
So I mean, I was already like, oh wow, Price Chopper. I didn't know.
You're like, you were already had the pro tips and you didn't even know it.
Yeah. I mean, one of my questions was like, well, this is at the end of the movie. Like, what's with all the jokes about Tanya Monahan's eye, Tanya Monahan's feet?
Or learning how to read on set.
Yeah, that just made me laugh, especially because in Spirit Animal, one of my actors' names is Keith Monahan, and they have the same last name. I sent him like a screenshot. I was like, is that your aunt or something? So
I love it.
So cool.
Well, I loved Tanya very much, and we were really close and really good friends, and I was basically giving her the business is what I was doing, because she would be like, we were joking, like I would go, all right, you're going to grab the doorknob. I need a close-up. And she'd go, is my hand going to get a credit? Just goofy stuff. And so that was my way of giving her a hard time. That's the thing about those movies. It was absolutely friends. When we did a lot of those movies, we had no idea they'd even get distribution in some ways.
Yeah.
We were just kind of doing them because we loved doing them. And so that was like an in-joke for all of us, because Tanya would, we would be doing it. It would take us forever because Tanya was so funny. She was incredibly smart, but in the filming process sometimes, like I'd say, tie your shoes and we're going to do this and you're going to get up. So I'd be in a close-up of her tying her shoes, and I would want to get as close-up. Argento would be right on that shoelace. He would get the fibers. So I'd be like laying on the ground with my nose right on her shoe, basically, trying to film this shot. And it would, I don't know why, but suddenly it would take her 93 times to tie a shoelace. So I'd be like, golly, I'm going to have to give this foot credit. It's been in the movie for so long, and just things like that. So, ended up being a completely goofy kid thing,
So one of the things I love going to those end credits is, well, you had a very long scene as the Lost Hiker.
Jesus.
Oh my. But at the end, you're credited as some guy who loves making these trashy B movies. And I think that's perfect right there.
I tell you what, that scene should have never existed. It only existed because literally there was a scene that was supposed to be there, and we went to the location, and as you can see, it's dark. Well, that's because by then they had cut power to the location, so we had no lights. And so I'm lighting everything with car headlights. True story. Again, Herschel told me to do it. I will tell you the truth, because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. what do you mean? Pull up the car. You know, I was like, okay. And that's basically how we had to light those because we had no lights. And so we were going through hell. We had a couple of these handheld lights that we were trying to bounce off of these poster boards. And it was just dumb. And the people that were supposed to be in the scene never showed up. And so I'm like, this is shitty. And so the hand that's killing me is my own hand. And I'm literally off frame putting those shears in my own throat because it was just, there was no one there. I didn't know what to do. It was just so stupid in retrospect, but yeah, that's exactly the truth. We had to, you know, again, you had to go back and you had to do these things and you're like, what the hell is going on? What, you know, what am I doing?
That's why we love these, though. Like, I mean, in watching this, it's like the Goblin has very little screen time. When he shows up, it's almost like the Noble Romans monster guy. Like, I'm sorry, it makes me laugh. But then, like, every time he kills, it's just like a guy's arm with like a white T-shirt, you know, and like, you know, it's just like you put together whatever you could, and you're like, hey, dude over there who like pizza delivery guy, you want to come here and be in a movie and kill? I mean. And those are the kinds of things that I think that we like appreciate. And I think that a lot more people appreciate now than probably appreciated in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the thing is, like, for the original script was actually kind of a good script. But because of the situation and how things went sideways, and it wasn't, there was so many people that were dedicated. You mentioned Tanya and Mike Hellman and Jenny Admire. They were all so great, and Bobby was so great. And then we'd have people that wouldn't show up. And Chuck was great. He was always there, Charles Gooseman. But there was all these people that wouldn't show up that were supposed to be there. And they ended up even being in the movie getting killed in some cases, but they had other things they were supposed to be doing. But they showed up one day, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to kill you now. Because you were supposed to have been here 3 times, and you never showed up. You finally got you here, so you're just going to die. That's why you got no backstory. Some lady's suddenly in a kitchen sitting there trying to cook, and all of a sudden she gets her eyeballs drilled out because who the hell's this? There's no story. Well, that's because they never showed up. So, and I remember Matt Lewis was really, really dedicated, and I really liked working. Matt Lewis is on Facebook too, and he's Matthew Lewis, and he's really he's in all those early movies, and he was such a hard worker and a dedicated guy. I love those people. It's not against the people. It's just a nightmare, you know. And also because, like you guys said something that really touched my heart. And you said, you know, these movies inspired you, and I wish I would have been able to do better for you because then you'd be inspired by a better movie. If that makes any sense. The gore is great. I think the gore is fine. And
yeah, these movies very much inspired me. Like, I watched Zombie Bloodbath, like the whole trilogy when I was a kid. I didn't see Goblin until more recently, but that stuff really inspired me.
Oh, I appreciate that. Now, see, that's Zombie Bloodbath is the first movie I openly embrace, and I don't disown that. You know, is that I consider that my first real movie. And the reason I do that is because by the time I did Zombie Bloodbath, I learned so much. And up until then, I remember we were shooting Bimbos in Time, and we literally shot that right up to Zombie Bloodbath, but a lot of other people were involved in shooting that too, not just me. I got the director credit, but I really shouldn't have because Mike Hellman did some directing and all these, Charlie Gooseman did directing. All these people were doing directing. Hell, even Jerry directed a couple scenes. But for me, I was like, well, you got to choose one director and you've got the name, so we're going to put your name. But I felt like, you know, I didn't really want my name. It wasn't fair. But during that time, I was doing a lot of research and learning so that when I did Zombie Bloodbath, I would be better. I would be much more, at least somewhat schooled, and that's why I consider that my first real feature, even though I'd done all those other ones. I mean, those are all kind of practice going up to Zombie Bloodbath, and I tried to put everything I'd learned into that one, and I think it's a lot more polished because of that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the thing, too, with the inspiration part. Like, kids today, I mean, can maybe, like, look at YouTube people and that kind of stuff. I mean, there's some, like, you know, some people have made, like, some found footage movies or whatever they can look up to. But, I mean, what did they have to look up to? They're like, oh, I watched that Ari Aster movie and I want to be like that. No. I think for us, it was that we watched these movies and we knew that there was heart, that there was little money, that it was friends. We knew that people were flaking. Like, I think that those of us who really care, we knew it back then and had that idea that, like, hey, I could do this shit too. And I'm 44 and I'm only just now doing it. Because I've spent my whole life like watching these movies and being like, well, these other people did it. Why can't I? And that's where I think that the inspiration comes from, is that it's not perfect. That that you can see all the imperfections and you can see where you tried to fix them, and you can see the heart. We say that so many times on this show. It's all about the heart.
I know for myself, like I never thought I'd be able to make something like Dawn of the Dead. You know what I mean? But seeing like a Goblin and some of your other work in other early SOV movies, those seemed more of an obtainable thing that I could do, and that there was these people out there making these cool movies with lots of heart, cool stories. They were horror movies made by horror fans, and I think that's what shows the most, even in your early work. I know you're not a big fan of it, but you can tell you guys are having fun. You can tell that you guys, have a lot of heart and that you love doing what you're doing, and I think that really shows in those early films, as well as your later work as well. I mean, you're obviously a fan number one, and I think you make better movies because of it.
True.
I appreciate that. I really do.
And absolutely,
really do.
I mean, because also, I mean, you keep on getting people that want to take and work with you and that promote you constantly, that really love you, and that really shows your talent as both a director and as a person, just as a person too. So that's just it, and it shows in your films that they really want to be there.
Yeah.
What I call the Todd Sheets players, right? Yep. I mean, like I'm getting ready. I'm working with Dylan Harvey on Backwoods Bubba. And, and she's definitely like, she's a Todd Sheets player. And then like Antoine, you still have to email me the release, but Antoine's going to be in my movie, and it's like these people who are, it's like a family. Like, it's like, you want to use my brother? You're going to have to sign something.
Well, it's all about protecting, and it's nothing against like with you. I think the world of you, Rebecca. Hell, I just think you're doing a great thing, and everybody on this show, and Tony, how I feel about you, man. I'm just so proud of you. But it's like, if someone's going to use someone that's part of Extreme Entertainment, it's part of the actual core of the family, especially if they're partners or officers, that are actually under contract. I just want to make sure that they're protected. Because there's horror stories out there where girls go off to make these movies and they get there and they're stranded, or people aren't feeding them, or they're treated badly, or they make them do things. And like my buddy Debbie Rashan cutting her hand on a machete that she still has problems using that hand. It's like people don't take care of these guys. And so I'm like, that's not going to happen for my team at all. It's like no one's getting rich doing this. They're doing it because they love it. And why, I don't want them going off somewhere because they love doing this and ending up knowing how we do things here. And they're kind of protected by me here. Like I'm kind of a different kind of director, which you'll find out pretty soon, Rebecca, when we work together, that I'm kind of one of those directors that's very, it's really rare. Like, I was apologizing to people on Clownado because I felt like I was being like, because there's so much bad happening that I got a little grumpy, I thought. And they're like, we didn't even notice. I was like, really? Geez, because I'm so, because the thing is, I want it to be a pleasant experience. The set should be a sanctuary. It shouldn't be a screaming madman's lunacy den. It should be something where people are being creative together, and because we are creating something new together, a new life out there, a new cinematic life that never existed before we came together to do this. And I want everyone to feel that joy and that pleasure, and also they know they're safe, they know they're protected. So when they leave and they're working with people that they don't know, I want them to be treated the same way I would treat them, or else what's the point of it? Because they're not, no one's making a whole lot of money, and no one's doing this to become a celebrity, star, because it's not going to happen in a lot of ways. It'll, like you said, there's people who admire Dylan and who are her fans, but Dylan's also not in the new Die Hard movie. So there's a
Right.
world of difference there, and I want to make sure that people are treated correctly and with respect. That's the biggest thing.
We all are in this indie horror thing that we all like respect and love, but if you go outside of that, there are some people who don't respect it. And
Right.
it's like right on the edges too. There are some people who are just kind of right there, kind of stalking around and ready to kind of exploit some of the people who are a little bit bigger in this.
It's true, yeah, very much so. And you know, there's also we've seen it. You know, there's also people out there that maybe take a little bit of advantage of some of that.
Yeah.
Some of that. And you know, we don't want that for each other, and we certainly don't want it for someone that we care about. You know, we want to make sure that everybody's well taken care of, and you know, that's all. Just treat people with respect, man. That's, you know, it's not a hard thing to do. At the end of the day, just do it. Just be decent.
Yep. And okay, so we are ending or getting close to our ending time with you. So what is going on with you? Like, what are you doing now? Because of course we all know Todd has he's moved on from SOV, which there's no reason to. It's still, SOV is awesome. But he was on our show in the Micah Madness for Bonehill Road and Clownado.
Clownado's amazing. I mean, but Clownado favorite.
Oh, thank you.
And I would like to think that the comment you made before is that there will be a Clownado sequel and I will be in it.
Oh, I hope.
Well, I've got some things going on now. I can't talk too much about because I'm under contract, but I will tell you, I kind of told you a little bit in a message that this is kind of next level stuff for Extreme Entertainment, and it really is. I'm working with a longtime friend, someone in the industry I've been friends with for 25 years, about 20 years maybe. Since the days when you used to have to write letters even, I was sending letters to this guy, and we've been friends so long, and we've always talked about working together. We never could find the right project. Well, we found the right project, and it's something very cool, and it is next level stuff. It's got elements of horror, but it's an action kind of based thing, but it's set in my favorite time period, which is like the late 70s. And it's kind of like if you took like let me think all the different movies, like Cleopatra Jones and Dolomite, and like, you know, movies like Black Belt Jones and Hot Potato and some of the Fred Williamson stuff. You know, you take a little bit of that, a little Coffee, all these great action movies that I loved growing up at the drive-in, and you mix that a little bit with a little bit of horror, a little bit of sci-fi, and maybe a little bit of Eric Roberts, little stuff like that. We're gonna be doing some new things that we've never attempted to do before. Very, very exciting things. We are on the edge of kind of taking a step to that next level. And I've always said every day on the set is a learning experience. And if I'm not learning something that day on the set, it's a wasted day. And I mean that. And I want every project to be something that is not only different, as you guys have noted in the past, like every one of our movies got so different thematically. I mean, you can kind of tell it's our movie because we fill in little things, but like Bonehill is so vastly different than Dreaming Purple Neon, and that's so vastly different than Clownado. And if you love Clownado and you haven't seen Dreaming Purple Neon, you really need to see Dreaming Purple Neon, because it's like, I'm really proud of that movie. And we did that on a credit card. So, you know, what was the year? I don't even remember, like, I can't remember, but we did it on a credit card. You know, we did it ourselves. And I am so excited about this project. And we also have a top secret project we've been working on for a little while. And we didn't tell anyone we were doing it. And then right as we were starting to end it and finish up, the COVID thing hit, and we had to finish during the shutdown process, which was a living nightmare. And I've been editing and doing all kinds of color correction and stuff for that. There is a director's cut Blu-ray of Clownado that I had to get, you know, working on that, and that'll be coming soon. The Bonehill Road Blu-ray is coming soon, and it's a different cut also.
Shit.
Yeah. Oh, you mean
buying it? Well, I have Clownado, but I'll buy it all.
Yeah. Yeah, that Bonehill is really good for me because I was able to tweak some things that later on I was kind of wanted to do, and I added a little bit more gore, and there's a little bit more werewolf action, and I was able to do
werewolf action. So did you see
Yeah,
the
I gotta
post
have
today? Douglas Epps got somebody like who commented that like that wasn't a werewolf movie, that was a porn. And he's like, what kind of porn do you watch, buddy?
I saw
It's
that.
on the
Yeah.
Amazon reviews, yeah.
Yes.
There's something wrong with people. Honest to God, there's really
Right.
something wrong with
Yeah.
people. We know this. But
You
but
automatically
no,
show
the
They
somebody's
think
boobs
it's
and
wrong
then
with
it's
us, but they are the ones who are wrong.
right, they're nuts. But no, we also have the back catalog is getting ready to come out. We're doing the 3-disc Blu-ray of Zombie Bloodbath series, which are all director's cuts and really nice remastered. That's coming, and we've got Goblin remake on tap. It isn't going to be done right away, and Matt Hill originally did the first draft of that, and then Alex went in and he did a sweep on it, and it's pretty nice. I don't know when that's going to happen. We had some people that wanted it and they were wanting to back it financially, and they disappeared off the planet. So the reason we were going to do it was because we could do it. We could take that original idea. Matt being a huge Super Goblin fan, I said, Matt, write a script. And he did. And you know what? It was cool. He had some really cool stuff in there too. But then the guy that was going to finance it just disappeared off the planet. I'm like, okay, well, I've got these other things on tap. We've got this weird supernatural doll movie coming that has like some of the most insane kills we've ever done. That's on tap. And of course, my dream project to eventually hit is the Ballad of Marshall Stack, which is a huge, crazy cult. It's like you take the Devil's Reign meets Death Wish with a little Evil Dead thrown in. It's insane, and it's like I want to make that one very badly. So we've got quite a few things on tap, and they're all in different stages of post-production or pre-production and even just development, so everything's looking good. We were able to really, the support we got, being able to get our movies into Walmarts and be on, and a lot of people say their movies are in Walmarts, and it's not in Walmart. It's on a Walmart website carried through a third party or whatever, but it's not actually in stores, and we were able to get these things in stores, which was able, when we can turn that around and use that to build credential and to be able to do bigger things and do them our way. We're not going to sell out. We're still going to do them the way we always do them. We're not going to, it's still going to have blood, breasts, and beasts, and it's still going to be extreme entertainment film. And as a matter of fact, I'm probably going to be getting Tony involved in a couple of these because one of the things I want to do is a science fiction flick called Amber Star that I actually did on Super 8 when I was like 10 years old, and I want to actually expand and make that into a full feature. And so I'm going to need some help with some visual effects and stuff on that, and just things like that are just really exciting and fun. And wait till you see this new thing. This new thing is, I'm getting ready to blow it out and pounce it on the world. You're going to start seeing promotion for it. And it's a really cool thing. And I'm going to give a little teaser right here for you guys exclusively.
Yes.
I haven't talked about it anywhere, but if you like the Extreme Family, you're going to love this because it's a very tight little movie. Basically, Douglas is a late night talk show host who's a cross between Art Bell and Howard Stern, if you can imagine that. And one of his favorite people, or one of his fans, not favorite, he doesn't know the guy. One of his biggest fans is a crazy serial killer that claims to be part of a druid cult. And he calls in, and it's the night that he's taking the next step, and he's got to kill 8 victims that night, and he's killing them on the air. And you're kind of witnessing both sides of it. You kind of see the death, but you're also hearing, and you're also experiencing it with the people at the radio station, and then things converge. And before it's over, like, they're fighting for their lives because the whole station's basically closed down and this killer's in there. And it's a very interesting kind of change of pace. Also another detour for us, but it's very much one of the most violent, gory movies we've made in a long time. It's taking it to next level gore. So it's I wanted the death to just be vile. I wanted to just rip you apart. And
like Dreaming Purple Neon levels.
Not quite that level, but it's close. It is close in a couple scenes. There's two scenes in here that almost rival. There's one in particular that when you see it, you're going to go, holy hell, they're not going to do it. They just did it. And so we're pushing buttons, and the performances in this, we really wanted to take the time to create really cool characters and to push some really intense performances. And I think you're going to be surprised because there's performances in here that you will not believe how good they are. I was like, wow, man. I mean, and what we went through to make this thing with all the crap that happened and then the virus shutting down, and like we were in the middle of it and the lead actor got a health scare and just quit. didn't decide to wait or anything, just quit. And so we had to reshoot all that. We had to flop the whole cast around and everything else. And it was just we almost just quit because I'm like, no one knows we're making it anyway. What the hell are we doing? But I was like, no, this is too good a story. And it's something that we just wanted to do, just something little intimate, kind of just get together and do it. And man, you guys you're going to be in for a treat. I think you're really going to like it.
It sounds great.
I mean, I hear there's a great angry woman caller in this movie as well.
There really is. Rebecca was part of this, and she kind of knew that we were doing something, but I wouldn't even tell her what we were doing.
I know. All I knew was there's a call-in show, and here's your character. Call in.
Yeah, I did. I wouldn't tell her what it was for, but I'm going to release the name for the first time ever right here. The name is Final Caller. Final Caller. That's the name of the movie.
There we go. You heard it here, kids.
Yeah,
and
right
you
here.
know
So,
that any of your new projects, you have a home here with all of us. And if you need any help, you got 4 people who are totally willing to rally around extreme entertainment.
Yes, I'll be a corpse at any time. Just let me know.
I love it. I see. This is what it's all about, man. This is what it's all about. You guys are what it's all about. You guys are why I do this every day. This is why I bang my head against the wall and I say, what am I doing? But I know why I'm doing it. It's because of you. It's because of the stories I've heard from Tony and the reviews that I read of Tony's and stuff on his page. It's because of what I've heard from Rebecca, from all of you guys, every one of you. From things I see, Maddie, you too. The fact that we've inspired you to do this and to go out there and to make this happen. You guys are the reason that I've done this since day one. I mean, I've never taken a single salary. In 32 years I've been doing this, I've dedicated so much of my life to this because I genuinely love it. And I love the fact, and I'm going to get long-winded for 1 second. When I was a kid, we all have really hard times, but my parents were going through a divorce. I was in a horrible situation at a school. We were always moving. It was hard to make friends, and I was having a lot of problems. But when I went to the movie theater and sat there and watched Phantasm or Slithis or any of these zombie, Gates of Hell, any of these movies took me away from all that for 90 minutes or for 2 hours, and they made my life better. And all I ever hoped was to do something like that for someone like me. Maybe they'll sit down and watch one of my movies one day, and it'll help them. And it's a goofy thing, probably a lofty goal, say, but that's honestly why I did it, and that's honestly why I still, to this day, that's my thing. Is I wanted to give back so badly, and so I'm really, really, really glad that there's people who have enjoyed it like you guys and have been inspired in some way. I don't think I deserve that so much, but I certainly tried, and you guys are fantastic. You guys are fantastic, and I'm so happy. And Tony, I can't wait to talk to you more about. I'm so very proud of you, man. You got your own distribution going. You've made these great movies that I've enjoyed tremendously, and I'm always right there, first one out the gate to say, hell yes, Tony's got something new, Tillman. Let's check it out. And and you're helping a lot of SOV guys, and you're putting it out there. You're promoting it, and you're such a good-hearted guy. You've had a lot of troubles of your own. I know you've had health issues and things, but you're still there, man. You're still doing it. And we're gonna do something really cool. Wait till you hear about this Amber Star thing, man. We're gonna have some fun together on that.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd.
You're very welcome, all you guys. Thank you so much. I do have to go, but it has been such an honor to be here. And even though it's honoring a movie that I would just as soon find at the bottom of a toilet, I'm just very proud that I'm very proud to be a part of this, at least, and I do understand the love of Goblin. Believe me, I get those movies I love. People go, what? Why the hell do you like the Gruesome, Todd? It's awful. There's 2 talking wigheads for 10 minutes. What are you doing? But for some reason, I don't know. It hit me at that time in my life, like what you guys are saying. It inspired me. It was so weird because I was inspired by the loftiest of artists like Argento, and then I turned around and I was inspired, of course, by Star Wars and Lucas and all that, and then I was inspired by Herschel Gordon Lewis and these really, really raw, bizarre movies made in America. And the big influence for me, of course, was Italian cinema. You know, all that stuff. I love Italian horror so much, but you know, I get it. I understand. You know, I may not agree about Goblin, but I'll tell you one thing. Derek Demir did a good job as the Goblin, I thought, running around. He had such a good time. A couple times I was afraid we were really going to kill somebody with a drill near the eye. We were literally that close to the eye.
God.
Oh my God, that's my favorite part, where he kind of puts a little piece of whatever on the drill and it's spinning around and he's kind of looking at it like, huh.
I love that.
I got to tell you, that was a happy accident. We had a fake head, and we actually showed the drill going into this fake eyeball, and there was all this meat inside, and he pulled that out. The reason why we didn't use it was, even by our standards, that fake head was atrocious. It looked like someone just threw some paper mache on a cantaloupe. It was horrifying. So we were like, oh, we can't use that.
I love that the husband comes home with no bags after going to the grocery store. Dish soap or something. Like, oh, honey.
It's so funny. Honey, I'm home. I've got all these great groceries. And I remember on the set, because I was like, hey, guys, where's the grocery bags? Grocery bags? I'm like, yeah, it's in the script. Grocery bags.
What's that?
They're like, grocery bags. I think we used them in the gut scene. I was like, oh, great. Earlier that day, we shot another scene, and we've taken those bags and ripped them up into shreds and put them in there with the meat. That's gone. No bags.
We need a special edition DVD, Todd.
Oh God, no! I don't want to ruin the world. I'm just trying to save everybody.
Can we get a music video for the rock song? That's is that you in it? Like, it said additional music by Todd Sheets, like the rock music that's in that. Is that what was that? What was that band?
Like the metal song.
There's a band that you'll see listed on a lot of my movies called Enochian Key. And Enochian Key is basically me and whoever I had around at the time, a lot of times just me. And we would just go out and we'd record some songs. And I actually had a band called that for a little while, but we released like one album or whatever, and then that was it. But I kept it because I always liked the name and I thought that was cool. So that was kind of my thing. And so whenever you see that in movies, even today, that means that I needed extra music. I didn't have a piece that fit, and I made it myself. That's kind of what happens.
Love it.
So,
you know what?
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, Todd.
That's your Goblin, like the band Goblin, right?
My old punk band used to cover the Prehistoric Bimbo song.
Oh,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That was another spur of the moment thing. This guy was going to write it, never wrote it. I'm like, I'll write it myself. Like, what happened to that guy? He just disappeared. I appreciate that. It was
Total
literally
hero.
about 4 minutes. I think I spent the guy. I was like, I got to write something. And so I sat down and I worked out a couple of chords and I recorded it for the first time on the fly with the vocals and the guitar. And what you hear was the first take. And then I went back and threw in a couple extra guitars and drums or whatever. But that was the first take. It was what you heard. We recorded it in one take. I was just like, I think I know what I'm going to do. And I just did it. I made up everything on the fly.
Awesome.
And then
All right.
I was like, what's wrong with me? But I definitely appreciate it, guys. And
yeah, go feed your raccoons.
yeah, I'm going to be doing that soon, actually. That's going to happen very soon.
Well, we appreciate you, and if you don't think that there was ever any reason to put out Goblin or whatever, Well, here are 3 people who tell you there was.
Well, I appreciate that. I do appreciate it. At the time, I know we were thinking we were trying to do the best we could under the circumstances, and I remember back to, it was a lot of hard work. We were shooting 15-hour days and stuff, and it was hard. So couldn't tell it now. When you look at it, you're like, what did they do? Put this together in a day? But it was hard. It was just barbaric back then trying to make a movie, and plus we didn't own a camera, so I was always trying to go out and borrow cameras and rent cameras and everything else. And so then I finally, during that last part of the shoot, I bought a camera, so that was cool. But
well, we're glad that you persevered and kept through this and kept filmmaking, because there are a lot of people who in '93, had they gone through the experience that you went through, probably just would have hung up their hats.
Yeah, true. Well, I almost did on Zombie Rampage. That was almost it for me. I was like, I'm out. But no, I do. I appreciate everything, guys. You guys have a wonderful night, and keep on doing what you do, and keep on making those movies, and don't let anyone stop you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Have a good night, Todd.
Yep.
Love you.
Take care. I love you guys too. Thank you.
Okay, so we usually do a beat by beat of the movie. We didn't, of course, because Todd was on here. But we will go through some of our favorite parts and thoughts from Goblin. Tony, what are your thoughts?
Gosh, well, like I said, this is one of my favorites. I kind of already told the story about how I discovered Goblin, but it's just one of those movies, I just find myself going back to constantly. I mean, I love all of Todd's work. I mean, even the Bimbos trilogy, I pretty much love just about anything the man has done. He's done no wrong in my book. But this is just the one I find myself rewatching it constantly. I probably throw it on at least once a year. I have to watch Goblin. Even my wife has seen Goblin, and she's not a fan, but she has seen Goblin, and but she'll sit and watch it with me. And another thing I didn't mention earlier when we were talking to Todd was the stylistic. You start to really see. You see kind of that Argento style. You see it in the lighting. You see it in some of the camera work. Like, you definitely can see those stylistic touches that definitely, are more prominent in his work as he continued as a director. But I feel Goblin's really that first one where I kind of like just noticed those kind of little nods. It was like when I watched that movie, it was totally Lucio Fulci and Dario Argento inspired, and even reminded me of some of the like German gore films and stuff like that. And so, I just think Goblin's a lot of fun. I mean, obviously it has a lot of faults. I mean, there's the Todd Sheets walking scene that we talked about earlier that goes on for about 10 minutes. Actually, I love the Goblin. I think Derek Grenier does an amazing job as the Goblin in his shorts and his tennis shoes. That's totally fine by me.
Yes.
And it's the look. The makeup is really good, I think, on him, and just the sadisticness of the Goblin himself. I mean, it's really a great character, and I can see why Todd is considering making a remake, because I do think the story is there, and I think it's I think it's a great movie. I love it. If I had to rate it, just go ahead and throw my rating out there. I'd definitely give it one. I'd give it 4 stars. I think it's excellent. I love this movie, probably too much. And I hope someday, my dream is to put out this movie on DVD or any of Todd Sheets' early work. One day, my main goal is I want Todd Sheets to be happy that he made these early movies and understand that there's a generation of fans like myself who it's just so inspiring growing up and watching this stuff. And even though there's a lot of painful memories for him with these, I hope someday people like me can help change those memories into positive memories. So 4 stars, love it. Check it out, people.
And clearly, it's clearly he had some bad juju, like he said, with these movies, but they must have propelled him because he kept going. And that's probably like what J.R. Bookwalter was going for. Sometimes tough love works, sometimes it doesn't.
Oh, those articles are vicious, Rebecca.
But
I've read a lot of those.
But on the other hand, I mean, just devil's advocate, what was like? Have you not watched a movie in the last 2 weeks that somebody just eviscerated online and you're like, I gotta watch that? Like, there's sometimes when it's like that's what you have to like capitalize on. I get it both ways, but obviously he took the high road, and glad he did. And this is the kind of stuff that like inspired me. And when I was a kid, I didn't know that when I watched this kind of stuff, I've said this before, I didn't know this was being made by people not too much older than I was. And now I'm like, I'm working with Tim Ritter, and I'm working with Todd Sheets. I'm working with, well, I'm not working with, but talked to Rolf Konevsky, and I told him that there's nothing out there. Had I known that he was my age when he made that, I probably would have made films. And he's like, I'm sorry that inspired you. But, all these people who are like, oh, God, I don't look at my old stuff. They don't realize that that's really like where our love comes from. I honestly, this is the kind of stuff that I watched when I was a kid until I started hanging out with a dude named Slade Shepherd. I hadn't really like revisited a lot of this SOV stuff. And now I'm revisiting it. And some of them I'm like, I pop them on and I'm like, yeah, I've saw this like 20 times. And some of them I'm like, I don't know if I watched this or not, This one was one where I popped it on, and it's like at first it's kind of an innocuous story. Kids are at a new housewarming party. They find a book in the basement. Well, we've been there. This is not new territory. And then as soon as that damn demon came on the screen, I was like, oh yeah, I've seen this. And it brought back all those memories of like why I like watching these movies. I will not get any more long-winded. I will give it also a 4, as Tony did. Yeah, it's got its flaws. I mean, but a lot of its flaws are its charm. Maddie?
I think I will also give this a 4. Not to be a copycat.
Yeah, whatever. Copycat.
Exactly. The first time I saw this was only a few months ago. I got that Decrepit Crypta Nightmares, whatever box set. And this was on there. So I started watching, because I'd seen some of Todd Sheets' earlier work. I was already a fan, but I hadn't seen Goblin. So it was the first time I watched it, and I really enjoyed it. So, I mean, it's got great gore. Like you guys said, the story is fun. The Goblin is amazing. I mean, I really enjoy it for what it is. I don't know. It's got some great one-liners too, like
for sure.
What that girl's calling the cops or whatever, and she's like, what is it? I wrote it down. She's like, get your fucking
don't
ass
use
out
profanity.
Get your effing ass out here. I'm gonna die.
And then it's like
call the cops.
Yeah, it's like 30 seconds later, she's like, okay, just give me the address. Like, she's just so worried about the profanity.
It's not fucking human. Wait a minute. Don't use profanity.
Yeah.
No, I can't hold.
And I love Veronica Orr. She's in a lot of those early Todd Sheets movies. She's always a lot of fun.
And then,
actress who played the dispatcher.
Like, it's got good one-liners. I really enjoy it.
Oh, one thing that I wanted to bring up is like the cop who's ready for some football. He pulls up in this beat up Subaru, no hubcaps, like the front is dented in, and like he gets out fine. Maybe he's undercover, but like they look out the window, they're like, there's a cop car. Like, that's not a cop car. Gotta These are the things we love.
Exactly.
All right, Slade.
Well, Rebecca already knows that I enjoy this one, and like with when we talked with Todd on Bone Hill, and I know that he really doesn't find a lot of good things to take a look at the film, but speaking kind of with the kills, the gore was great, and the one-liners, just and some of the atmosphere in the movie is really, really good. I thought I was kind of surprised to hear Todd talking about his scene with when he's taking and going into the house. I actually thought that had some creepy elements to it, and there's lots of gore spray in this movie. And God, I love arterial spray. It's just so it's so fucking satisfying for some messed up reason to me whenever I see it, especially like Japanese horror films, like where they'll get nicked just a little bit, and it's like like 5 people's like entire blood count just comes spewing out.
Yeah, like we don't care about realism, people.
No, fuck that.
Yeah.
I love that the Goblin uses tools too,
Yes.
like just throughout, and like the scythe kill, like the hand scythe kill.
Oh yeah, we did not talk about that one.
Like that one was rad to me. I really fucking enjoyed that. I thought
how did she stay alive that long and on the ladder? But
the ladder kill, yeah.
Yeah, the disintegration too was really cool, and I don't know. I really like movies that have dark endings too. Like just with the zombies. It's just a lot of fun, and like Todd said, and I don't know if he's listening right now, but when I was growing up, I had a lot of issues, and I wasn't allowed to take and really go outside very much at all, not to have friends over or anything like that. And my school life was kind of a mess, and home was the exact same way. And movies were, I credit them really for me just even making it through that time to where I could take and get out. So I really understand that. And films like this and Redneck Zombies and just thrown in with all the rest of them I don't really see a difference. I mean, it's you can take and say, I will take and say that I'm not going to take and judge these kind of movies on the same caliber as, AAA movies, but they're not the same to me. They're not, they have this charm that just takes and eclipses those kind of movies because they're just so, I don't know. I can't really explain it.
I think when we were kids, at least I can say this for me, and I think we've kind of talked about this too, like we didn't really you didn't have the internet and you didn't really know about like budget and filmmaking and whatnot. Like nobody really knew about that. You just knew what was in the movie store, especially for kids like us who were in these podunk towns who we didn't know what came out in the theater. Like, we had a one screen movie theater that had the same movie for a month, so I didn't know what, like Maximum Overdrive or something was never playing at my stupid little theater.
I saw maybe 3 films before I was 19 years old.
Yep. Well, okay, I can say before 16 because then I started dating. But yeah, I saw E.T., the Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, that kind of thing. But you didn't know when you went to the video store what you were getting. And I was always drawn more towards these movies without knowing what they were.
Absolutely.
And there was a reason. There is a reason for it. Not saying that I didn't like higher budget movies, but there was a reason why I was more inclined to rent something like this than, the latest Stephen King thing.
Well, speaking of taking and picking up the rent, can we talk about how fucking cool the VHS art is? Because I really love it. I love it. Amazing. I love it so much. It's just so looking it back right now, it's just so retro and fun, and oh god, I wish.
And talk about a great tagline. You won't believe your eyes until you rips them from their sockets.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it's the same art, I think, from the artist who also did the Prehistoric Bimbos cover. It has that same look to it. Yeah. I think it might have been David Lang who. I think it was David Lang who did a lot of work with a Tempe Video Outlaw back then, if I remember correctly.
I actually had it written down to ask Todd, but time constraints and stuff. So
Yeah.
maybe you can answer in the comments, Todd. They can give us
send him a message.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just a fun film to me, and I was very surprised because I hadn't really taken in looked up anything about it, and I'd only read just a bit of some of those older magazines, and I never really focused on comments. I'm the kind of person that I don't ever read. I don't read the comments unless it's like a larger budget title.
Right.
Usually, I'll take and read the synopsis. I'll see what kind of care is went into the cover, and possibly generally I'll watch a trailer for lower budget entries and take and see if it'll be my speed. But I find that my taste in film doesn't translate to the general public very well, and that's okay. That's totally fine. I to each their own with that. Just don't shit on what I like. If you don't want me to take and tear your darlings apart,
your blockbuster apart.
Because I tell you, with these kind of films, like major studio productions, they're meant to appeal to everybody, and because they do that, they miss out on really solidifying that connection to a genre's base, or subgenre,
or pushing boundaries.
Yeah, especially that. And as a direct result, you'll hear me say it a lot when people take and ask me my opinion on modern films. I'll just say it's fine, it's good. It's well put together, and
what is at the end of great. Goblin, which is flush Hollywood, support B movies.
Yes.
Yes.
And just so you guys know, I have the VHS right here. It says who did the cover. It's actually Bill Morrison, who did a lot of effects on JR's early movies. You probably recognize his name.
Well, if there's a lot of flack for this movie, I can imagine whoever's that phone number at the end of the movie probably got a lot of phone calls. I don't know if that went to the distribution company or what, but yeah, this is a fun film. If you like shot on video, I would totally recommend it. And Todd, you should not take and feel bad about this film. All your films have been highly entertaining to me, and I greatly appreciate that. I know that Tony and all of us, we all really enjoyed this one. So I'm going to give it a 4.1 because I'm an asshole.
Nice.
You just need to.
It's going to
one up me.
Yeah. The 4.025, everybody.
025, yes.
Yes.
Oh, so it's four stars for me too. So 4 across the board.
All right, guys. Well, this has been our very special episode of SOBs Who Love SOV. We will be back in a couple of weeks with something else wonderful. We'll talk off air to figure out what we're going to do. But hey, thanks for joining in. Hope you enjoyed it. And the Todd Sheets exclusive. Yeah, we got our own exclusive. Yeah,
I'm actually excited for that. It seems like it's gonna be fun. I always love a person in an isolated location, taking and slowly realizing that things are going to shit, and he's powerless to take and stop it because they're in that one spot.
Definitely. Great subgenre.
It probably needs a better name than what Slade just gave it, but yeah, good subgenre.
You got the idea.
Isolation
yes.
flick, right? All right,
guys.
Slade
said better.
Yeah, there we go. It's a little more succinct. Can't say that. All right, guys. Have a great night. This has been the SOBs Who Love SOV.
I'm tired. I'm going to have a beer. Goddamn Virginia Woods.
Oh, God.
Thistle, thistle, thistle.
Thistle, thistle.